What's holding you back from starting or growing your business into what it can be? Well, if you're listening to this, it's not a lack of information. What you're about to hear is all you need to get motivated and start making waves. Do It for a Living podcast details the journey of today's true players in their own words. Find out how they broke out so you can too. The time is now. The time is always now.
Welcome back to another episode of Do It for a Living. This week we've got Nathan Ciccio of what was formerly Top Speed Motorsports, which I'm sure lots and lots of people have heard about, especially if you're in the GTR market and even Evos and pretty much everything else that I can think of. So I guess Japanese import stuff. But now it's moving forward, it's being called Cicio Performance. And Nathan is here with us, and he's going to obviously share that transition and how he got started in motorsports and in modifying cars and running the shop in general. And I've been trying to get this podcast for a while. He's a very busy guy, so I'm finally excited to hear his story and kind of how you got going. So Nathan, how are you doing?
I'm great, man. Yeah, it's been we've definitely been trying to do this for a while, and I apologize about that, but I'm very excited to be on the show as well. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and it's we see each other at racing events. I think it was I met you at Texas 2K maybe a couple times, and definitely FL 2K was where we got to talk the most. Yeah, so sure. It's you guys are out of Atlanta, right?
Yes, sir. We actually have two locations as of recently, as of the end-ish of last year. So we've got one in Virginia Beach, Virginia, that services the northeast kind of area of the United States, and then one in Atlanta. And definitely we'll be expanding to a third, hopefully here in the next probably year to 18 months.
Awesome.
It's in the plan. So
I did not even know you had two locations. So let's go ahead and get started here. And why don't you go ahead and get going by telling us your background, like growing up, or what kind of got you involved in this business leading up to starting, or how you got involved with Top Speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, grew up, dad and brother, of course, kind of into cars. My dad owned a car dealership, well, not a natural or a traditional one, but he did wholesale cars. So he would go and buy the cars in packages or in bulk, whether at the auction or whether, they'd be trade-ins or whatever. He'd bring them back to, our, I don't know, you couldn't even call it a lot, but, and kind of, redo them or fix little things on them. And then he would take them to an auction, or he would sell them to a dealership. He never touched the end user. So I got into it at a very young age. I can't remember exactly how old I was when I was actually started working with him on cars. But I mean, we were trucking cars back and forth from New York to Florida because that was kind of his little niche.
Okay.
When I was tiny. I mean, tiny. Mom tells the story that there was a time when he had to change the drive shaft on a truck because it blew the drive shaft out, and it was hooked to a trailer. And I was so little that he had to tell me to hold the brakes because he had to take the drive shaft out of the truck, and it wouldn't stay, right? So I was so little that I had my hands on the bottom of the steering wheel, just pulling with all of my might with both of my feet on the brakes while Dad was underneath the truck changing the drive shaft. Just kind of grew up around the cars. Dad actually did he loved cars. He was really into the old Corvettes, couldn't really afford one at the time. But, as he grew his business, we always had something around, whether it was an older, not quite restored Corvette or some type of little hot rod or something. So I was just around it a lot, some dirt track racing and so on and so forth, growing up. And that was kind of I would say the inception, if you will, just being around the cars. And then of course, just learn to love them. We'd go to car shows, and I guess my biggest turning point of like, hey, this is something that I don't want to say infatuated with, but it's probably an accurate term. I was like 10 or 11 years old, and we went to a car show in Atlantic City. And there was a buddy of my dad's that had a 308 Ferrari and a DeLorean. And he let me see. Yeah,
interesting combination. Okay.
yeah, right. So he he let me sit in the 308. I didn't really care about the DeLorean that much, but he let me sit in the 308, feel the gated shifter, and just I think I don't know how long I spent in the car because I can't remember it exactly as far as how long I sat there, but I remember just being just enamored. I was so infatuated with that car, and I just thought to myself, man, I want to do something that has to do with racing these cars or driving these cars or doing something about, I mean, like a Ferrari or something, some exotic type of car. I wanted it so bad. And actually from there kind of stemmed me doing, I would draw pictures of cars that, designs that I came up with in my head that was kind of like two or three cars I've ever seen, I've seen before, kind of merged together. And I'd, sign it with my name, or I actually came up with like a couple of different logos and stuff. And it was just something that I was infatuated with when I was a kid. My brother and I shared a room. My brother tells the story that he hated when I fell asleep first because he was scared. We were young. I mean, my brother's younger, so he's probably 6. But he would always ask me, so, hey, what kind of car are you going to buy? And what are you going to do to your car when you're 16? And I'd start rambling, and he would fall asleep, little little twerp, but he would fall asleep. I'd be like, oh, he's asleep, and then I'd go to bed. But he's literally pulled that trick on me all the time, just because I would go on and on and on and on about what I was going to do to my car when I turned 16.
So you had it all planned out then, essentially.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. The road was clear. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure that that's very similar to a lot of people that are in our industry. So from there, yeah, I just started working on cars with my dad. And I opened a little tiny detail shop and started helping him with detailing cars. Well, I can't say I opened a detail shop, but I started detailing the cars and cleaning stuff and helping him work on things and just learning, being around the cars. So so that's kind of how things started as far as my desire to be in the industry. I guess from there, if you want me to just keep on rambling, I certainly will.
Well, yeah, I mean, like that's when you're a little kid. Did you ever have any like formal training, or did you go to college or anything like that?
Yeah, so no, I'll go on from there. So I was homeschooled my whole entire life. Never went to a school, and we moved to Florida. And when we lived in Florida, I was still just messing with cars, and I went to college there just for I honestly only went to college for like a year. I dual enrolled at a high school and college, and it just wasn't for me. I knew that I was never going to, hand a guy a piece of paper and say, hey, listen, I'm qualified for this job because of this piece of paper says that I am. My dad was an entrepreneur. My brother was becoming an entrepreneur. I knew that I was going to do something. So I actually split off, and I didn't really do a ton with cars until into my late 20s. I did a plethora of different things, and then I opened a snowboard shop with one of my buddies, and we started a clothing. No. Life kind of bounced from there, but I could go into a long story of my entire life, but life bounced from there. I actually ended up in North Dakota. And again, how I got there is probably not anything that any of these listeners would be interested in, but I actually ended up in North Dakota. Met to this day my best friend that I've got in life and moved up there, started a snowboard shop, started a clothing line with him, and then right then is when kind of it kicked back over into car mode. I can't remember. I was probably 23, maybe 24. Did the snowboard scene for like 2-3 years, and then bought a '02 WRX Wagon.
Okay.
And when I got that '02 WRX Wagon, I went all in. I had the motor out of the turbos off of it. I was upgrading this, blowing it up. Didn't have a tuning solution. Tried to figure out how to tune myself. Had a manual boost controller on it, and just kept on turning the knob until something bad happened. So anyway, I ended up hurting that car. Renting a little shop. One of my buddies wanted to get in the shop with me, and then it turns out there was another buddy, and then there was like 3 of us in this little shop, and then people started bringing us their cars that they had broken or they wanted upgraded or whatever, and asking us advice, and I just kind of became, I don't know if you want to call it, the leader of the little tuner car gang basically in the local town.
Uh-huh.
And you know, that turned into a horrible experience with a Talon. Which anybody listening, that's yeah, that was just horrible. But
I think that's
but
everybody's
yeah,
experiences with talents, right?
I don't know. I don't know. There's a few people out there. I guess Devin at Booston, I think he still likes
Yeah, he likes it too much, I
DSMs,
think.
but
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if I know anybody else that does. But anyway, yeah. So had an Eagle Talon, built the motor in that, you know, bigger turbo. Anyway, so you know, we went on from there and just started working on other people's cars a bunch up there. And there's 3 of us in the shop. We were all kind of like the go-to guys in town. One guy was tuning in a little bit, you know, with whatever was available at the time. Cobb just came out with something, and I think he had an open source that we were using. We didn't have a dyno or anything, but yeah. So that kind of merged into an STI, and that is kind of how I met Doug. So I met Doug Wilks, who was the owner of Top Speed.
Okay.
Because I needed my STI tuned.
Okay.
And he was on the forums and did travel tuning and so on and so forth. Actually, the first time I met him, I was home. I was in upstate New York, and I was visiting family, and he was tuning in Connecticut. So I drove my 05 STI at the time over there, and we ended up just hitting it off, becoming good friends. You know, he tuned the car, and then I started helping him with tuning appointments. Like I would set up a tuning trip for him, and he would so I'd just fly him in. I'd set up the cars. I'd let everything, you know, get everything lined up. I'd set up the dyno, and then he would come in, tune the cars. I would take a little cut. He would take a much bigger cut. That only happened a couple of times, but it, you know, we had a really good time together doing that. And so after that, we just, like I said, we just became friends. And I don't want to go too deep into this, but there was some bad stuff going on at Top Speed, and he was losing employees, and there was kind of a one big mass exodus where, you know, a bunch of his employees just left, and it was kind of just him and one other guy just high and dry, and, you know, a pretty good amount of debt and a bunch of cars that weren't finished. And he knew me as a business guy, and a friend, and basically just called on me, you know, to come help.
Okay.
So
As
I
an,
had
as an employee, basically.
you could call it
Okay.
that, one that didn't get paid. Yeah, I mean, I had dreams of being in the industry, you know, after some, you know, the business ventures that I did in North Dakota.
Sure.
And you know, I talked to guys at Rally Sport and was thinking about going and working there. And I actually talked to a guy, it wasn't Tony, but I talked to a guy down at Injector Dynamics about possibly doing something with them. You know, I wanted to be in the industry is because what I wanted to do. And I knew I knew that when I was young, that's the future that I wanted.
Okay.
And I had maybe not lost sight of it, but hadn't gone after it as hard as I felt like I should have maybe when I was younger. So yeah, so he told me, you know, come on down, hang out, let's see, you know, if you could help me for a few weeks. You know, it's just like come down for a month kind of deal. I came down and stayed with him and his wife. I had just finished building another STI, and I needed it tuned, so it was kind of worked out. I was like, you know what, that's cool, I'll come down.
Okay.
So I came down, and just in my typical fashion, I just went, I went 110%. You know? So we were trying to get these cars out here, you know, done, because the customers were upset, obviously.
Yeah.
We had basically no technicians. It was just pretty much me and him at that time. We had one technician that ended up leaving as well during that time, just because we couldn't necessarily keep him around. And we just hustled. And I was in the shop, or, you know, in the front office in the morning, returning emails and phone calls and picking up the phone and so on and so forth, and then back with him working and wrenching and doing everything I possibly could to try to get these cars out of here, and then back up here in the front office doing the office stuff in the evenings. And we were just hustling, trying to make it happen. And just one thing led to another. You know, it was like, oh, this will be a great idea. Why don't you stay here and, why don't we go do one lap of America? I've always wanted to do one lap of America. I'm like, oh yeah, that would be awesome. Like, so I took some of my savings, bought a 996 GT2, and we just started modding it. Got a hold of Lee Keen. He was like, yeah, I'll drive for you guys. Ended up winning that. And it just snowballed, right? I mean, it just snowballed. I mean, just as a lot of shops do, you get a lot of guys there's 2 or 3 guys in a garage and that's just what they want to do and they love doing it. And then one idea, bad or good, leads to another. And before you know it, you're working on cars for a living.
So you were doing it basically pro bono for this couple months then, huh?
Pro bono pretty much for about 3 years.
Okay.
And not necessarily 100%, but I never came on as an official employee.
Okay.
I lived with him for quite some time, so I didn't have that expense, and I had savings, so I was living off of some of that, and yeah, just taking where I could if somebody paid cash or something like.
Yeah.
I'd be like, okay, cool, I'm gonna take this $500 or whatever, whatever
right.
It was. But I never actually, and it's interesting, I never actually was an employee paid in any way, shape, or form of that company.
Okay.
Of the original Top Speed. So this gets into the business side of things a little bit. If you don't have any more questions, I'll move on, I guess.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah, so Doug and I started not seeing super eye to eye, right? Of course, as things, you had two cooks in the kitchen, if you will, and I felt like I was way better at the business, and he was way better at tuning cars, and he wouldn't let me run things, and I had seen that he had already kind of basically run the place out of business almost, and I didn't want to, I wanted to do my own thing. I wanted to make the decisions. I wanted to kind of be the guy. And we just, we were friends. We still are, decent friends to this day, but we just didn't see eye to eye in business. And I wasn't about to basically for almost no money, put myself through having to share in decision making with somebody I didn't think was making the right decisions.
Okay.
So
how did you manage to stay with him for 3 years without really making any money? Was it strictly off of savings, or did you have another job?
It was no, I didn't have another job. It was some off of savings, and then like I said, it was just some off of whatever
Cash
I could
sales or whatever you get on the side.
Gotcha. Whatever worked on the side. Yeah, exactly. Or there was some stuff that we actually did on the side, where I'd help a guy, in the shop or whatever, and he would just pay me directly.
Okay.
Whatever I could possibly do. Yeah, for sure. And at that point, yeah. So it wasn't like I was scraping, saving every single dollar that I had out of savings and doing it that way, but it wasn't an official paid position. So,
but the advantage of being a bachelor is you had very low overhead, right? You didn't need a big house, you don't have kids or family to support. You could basically live off of rice and beans, huh?
Exactly. And yeah, so because of a lot of those things, I said, okay, I need to go do my own thing, or I started looking elsewhere. And basically he just said, at that point he had just had, I believe, his second child. He definitely was not focused on running this place. It's not what he wanted to do. He would rather have been an employee.
Okay. So
I told him, well, I don't want to be business partners. I'm not interested in that. If I'm going to do this, I'll employ you, but I'm taking over. I'm starting my own company, and I'll buy the book of business and the assets, and we'll do it that way. Because I don't really want I didn't want what came with
the baggage.
Tops. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So that's what ended up happening. I started the company, started an LLC, and employed him and the other couple of guys that were here at the time. But yeah, and so then that started my company, Top Speed, if you will. That company, I named it Top Speed Motorsports. That company was always named Top Speed Performance. Nobody really knew that, I guess, but
okay.
It was just kind of But
So you
but
didn't
it's
you
interesting.
didn't have any name problems being Top Speed Motorsports versus his old Top Speed Performance.
Well, okay. I mean, this kind of merges into what you started the conversation with or introduced me as. Um, I really wanted to change the name
Okay.
bad. And I mean, no offense to him, and I hated the name Top
Okay.
Speed. I thought it was very, very generic. I thought it was something that, like I didn't think it was the name I wanted to move forward with my future because I saw my future in the car industry being what I wanted when I was younger, which was to really affect the industry in a positive way and become like a legit cornerstone.
Okay.
Like I mean, like I read books and looked up to like big names, the Ferrari and the Bruce McLaren and like I mean I wanted to be a cornerstone,
Okay.
I wanted to be Henry Ford,
Okay.
like which obviously is like, big goals, but this was when I was super young, so that we don't know any better, right?
Right.
So so anyway, at that point, I really, really wanted to change the name, if for nothing else, because it's just generic. I mean, go Google Top Speed.
Yeah,
You can't find.
there's the Top Speed that I buy parts from here in Dallas. It's a eBay store basically, but they have an actual physical showroom with a warehouse. So I just
Yep.
drive over there and pick it up, but it's called Top Speed Pro 1. I always
I
get the two names confused. I'm like, "Oh, go get it from Top Speed." And people are like, "Top Speed? Aren't they like somewhere else? Don't they do like GTR stuff?" I'm like, "No, the other Top Speed."
No, I know. And then you Google, and it's like, whether it be Google or whether it be search atomization or anything like that. I mean, it was horrible because every single blog that has to do with the top speed of the new car that just came out,
Oh, you get
they
buried,
all
huh?
trump you.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, oh, you get buried. I mean, think about Googling top speed, and it's like, okay, like it's Motor Trend, and it's I mean, you name it. That's every blog jalopnik. I mean, you name it. It's like the top speed of this, the quarter mile, the top speed of this, the quarter mile. It's like, well, I'm screwed.
Right.
Like so I just didn't like it. I never did like it, so um, I wanted to change the name, and I consulted with a couple of high-end kind of friends that I had in Atlanta at the time because I kind of got in the exotic crowd when I bought the GT2 and
Uh-huh.
hanging out with some pretty successful people. And a lot of those people told me, don't do that. You have established name, you have established brand. The company's been open for whatever it was at that time, 6 years.
Yeah.
Um, you've won all these races because at that time we had won one lap through all 3 years that I was there. I funded we bought a car and went to One Lap of America and won it. And the name had become a pretty substantial place in the industry, especially in the GTR community. And so they're like, yeah, you're crazy. Don't do it. So I didn't. And I regretted it. I've regretted it ever since, to be real honest with you. But which obviously leads to, the decision that I made a few months ago, or I guess about 6 months ago now,
Okay.
as far as the name change. But we could go into that at a different time if you want. But anyway, so yeah, so Top Speed. That's kind of how that transition and that happened.
Okay.
And he stayed on as an employee for a while. And we just continued to butt heads. It was just you can imagine
Sure,
we
he
have
gave up the reins to somebody else, and then now he doesn't have, I guess for lack of a better term, the power to do whatever he wanted anymore.
right.
I can see
right.
where that would be a problematic, right?
Yeah, and it was. And I mean, I think we did it the best we could managing it together, and working together and doing it. And I don't regret any of it at all, as far as, our partnership. But yeah, it ended up going separate ways, which is totally fine. He opened another little shop up the street, and he's still tuning cars and doing his thing and happy. So,
Okay.
we managed to coexist. So, every once in a while at a race that has nothing to do with either of us, actually racing our industry, we'll get have one or two too many and have a grand old time like it was the old days. So it's a good thing at this point. So, but yeah, so that's Top Speed. That's the kind of where I came from and what I wanted to do and how I got into the industry. Something I just always really wanted to do. I saw myself a little bit different, I think, than I've kind of ended up at this point. when I was younger, I really wanted to do something that was a little bit more, um, I don't know. I looked at something like Celine, or like, like this. I mean, Shelby. I mean, I looked up to Shelby. It's a little bit, I don't know, cliche now that that movie's come out, I guess.
Sure.
But I didn't necessarily see myself having a shop that just modded cars. I saw myself back years ago, having a brand,
Like
if you
going
will.
to the dealer and doing like 20 other cars and selling them as
Exactly.
your modified cars. I gotcha. Okay.
Yes, that's what I saw more.
Like a package
And then,
almost. Mhm.
yep, and then hopefully, maybe merging a race team out of that or something like that. So, but as a lot of people know, and I mean, I don't know exactly the demographic of who listens to your show, but um, this industry will absolutely just engulf you in one thing to the next. And so, I mean, once you get in, it's like, I don't want to say you're just constantly putting out fires, but this is not an easy industry to step back from and be able to create your own path. It's so hard to stop reacting so that you can start acting. That
Absolutely. That's a fantastic way of putting it.
Yeah, it is so hard. And I mean, I've never been really engulfed in a different business or a different industry, so I don't know, maybe I'm just an idiot and it's every business, but this is like, this is not an easy industry or position to be in, to say, okay, listen, we've got these cars. It's just like you're constantly just trying to pay the bills. You're constantly just trying to make sure that everything, get more cars in here, build a better product, make sure that things aren't breaking. When they do break, try to make them better. Keeping keeping employees happy. Constantly trying to keep customers happy, whether that be warranting or this or that. It's like it's a daily.
It's a
It just
grind.
engulfs you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just engulfs you. It really does. Night, day, night, sleep. It doesn't matter.
And as the owner, if anybody gets your cell phone, like I just use my cell phone as a shop number, so I get phone calls all hours of the day, every day, even on the weekends and nights, and
Yeah.
you got to put it on. I used to answer it even at 2 a.m. on a Sunday night, and I got sick of that pretty quickly. So I put my phone on vibrate, or actually it does a do not disturb, so I guess it doesn't even vibrate. But
Yeah.
yeah,
That's it's hard because one side of it is your client is a lot of times your buddy.
Yes.
Because you're doing this, it's all about the passion. It's all about the cars. It's all about racing. It's all about, that's what it's about, right? So like, at one side of things, not only is it actually a friend of yours, but you certainly don't want to make, even if it's like, even let's say that it's not like a buddy, like you want them to feel like they can contact you, and it's a fun. That's what it is. They need somebody that they can know is also enjoying this, and then trust the fact that you're going to be there to support them, and just 9 to 5 in it, that doesn't work.
Right.
Like it absolutely doesn't. Even if you could keep up from 9 to 5, it doesn't give the client the warm fuzzy that the client needs to make sure that they know that you're a car guy and you're not just out here to take their money, because nobody that's a client in this industry wants to be with the guy that's just out here for the almighty dollar.
Right.
And I can promise you, as you know, and everybody else listening, that is not why any of us are here, because
Right.
we make less money than we could do almost anything else making more money.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really funny because most of us are so highly skilled that like really in any other business line we'd be making tons of money.
It's very true.
So
I mean, you say that, and people, I don't think that people really grasp that, but like, in order to have a sustained, successful business in this industry, in this performance industry, you have got to be very smart. You have to be a ridiculous go-getter, and you have to surround yourself with absolutely amazing people. Like, this recipe that it takes to make it to the top in this industry is not like an easy recipe.
It's not.
It's really, no, it's not. And people are like, oh, it's cars, whatever. Like people that are in the outside looking in, they don't get it. They
Yeah, and
just
the problem is
absolutely,
it's so easy to get started, though. So, like, you can literally just have a box of Craftsman toolboxes and do it out of your garage and start calling yourself a tuner. You can have a laptop and a cable, and you can get started. And so that's where the problem is. It's so easy to get started. Everybody does it, and then they don't realize how hard it is to be a successful shop.
yeah, they don't. And the whole so easy to get started thing is something that we should touch on. Maybe not right this second, but we definitely should touch on that, because I would love to talk about that aspect of the industry, and where it's going, and some of the fears, and so on and so forth. But anyway, we'll get into that a little bit. Remind me about that.
Sure.
So yeah, so that was my vision and my goal, and I didn't change the name at that point, and I started reacting instead of acting, and that basically lasted a decade. And it's kind of sad to think that, but it's 100% true. I basically, for 10 years, I built the company. Of course, the company has become more and more substantial, and I'm very proud of it, but I never directed it where I wanted it to go.
Okay.
I never said, okay, listen, I want, as far as our sustainable future, I felt like the sustainable future was more in the area of, like I was speaking, the packages, things that you could actually just, I don't want to say cookie cutter, because it's not cookie cutter, but more cookie cutter than somebody coming in and saying, hey, I want 1,700 horsepower in a GTR, and I've got these 8 parts, and I'm going to need these other 10, and then I want you to build it, but I want to use this guy's transmission, and then I think you guys' motor are probably pretty good, but I don't like the turbo kit that you use. I want to order this other turbo kit.
Mm-hmm.
It gets, that's not a sustainable, profitable future. But when you have 5 technicians and 40 cars on the ground, what do? You just keep on doing that.
Yeah.
You just keep on reacting. It's just like, okay, all right, sweet, well, cool, because I need the money so that I can pay the bills and pay the payroll and make this whole machine happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just kind of never, it's hard to take a step back and say, hey, listen.
Right. And you also run into the problem of getting to the point where you can be profitable with like a cookie cutter type of packages. The problem you run into is there's not a lot of any of these cars. So you're exactly right in that someone's going to say like, oh, like I see an ETS kit, I see an AMS kit, I see one of your turbo kits, so which one do I pick? My buddy tells me to get an ETS one. I'm going to buy that and bring it to you and install it. Well, like there's not like there's like 500 other GTRs lined up to have your turbo kit installed next week. So you kind of have to compromise by taking it when you need it. And then you run into the same problem of like, okay, well, I did his. Now the next dude sees you installing somebody else's turbo kit, and they just assume that you'll do anybody's turbo kit, right?
Right.
So it's hard to
Yeah,
control it.
It is. It's impossible to control it. And that's not necessarily a bad thing unless it's an all-consuming thing. Well, okay, I say this. This is to me. To me, it's not necessarily a bad thing unless it's an all-consuming thing, meaning I don't mind doing that section of work or that section of the business because it's unavoidable, but not taking the success that you have out of that section and then applying it into building your cookie cutter stuff that you make more money on or make more consistent money on, and have more consistent results, we'll say, with happier customers, because when you start hodgepodging together a car, it's inevitable that the customer at some point, this is going to get frustrated because something's going to break, or if you get too many cooks in that kitchen, and it's just not going to, it's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, the problem is when you get all consumed in the fact that you have to do this to pay the bills, and then instead of focusing on creating those more sustainable packages off of your successes in the less sustainable area is the problem. And I think that that's a problem that a lot of us get sucked into. It's very easy to see, the fast cars, the races, the winning the races, trying to go after records and so on and so forth. But really, let's just get real about this. The record car is for absolutely nothing but to sell 10 kits that are 400 horsepower less than that record car.
Right.
Like that's how you make clients happy. Not every client wants to have that record car, but when you start getting consumed with bigger and bigger builds or more and more horsepower, and then not utilizing that marketing to switch it over to a stock motor, stock trans guy that just wants to make 800 horsepower and put the name on the side of the car because of the the success you've had in on the far left side of it, if that makes sense to you.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, so I guess that's what happened to us, is we just ended up, I mean, it was basically just trying to go from one mountaintop to the next, instead of just finding a nice even keel and utilizing a couple of mountaintops a year to market the consistency of our program. We weren't smart enough I wasn't smart enough to come out with, hey, listen, this is this package, this is this package, this is this package, and this is how much they are, and this is how long they take, and I have the parts in stock, and do a portion of those instead of focusing 100% on all the a la carte builds.
Okay.
And I think it was a mistake of mine, and I think that it all started with the fact that I kind of just didn't rebrand the company when I bought it. I just kept on going with what I had with the momentum I had going for the 3 years that I was quote unquote managing the old company. So yeah, so that's the long and the short of that. And then also the driving force behind the rebrand, which I'm happy to go into now. You have any...
Let's take a quick break here, and then we'll come back and let's hear about where you're at now. We all know owning a shop is difficult, so we created My Shop Assist to help you manage the various jobs. Whether you run a machine shop, a performance tuning shop, build off-road trucks, or even do powder coating, My Shop Assist can help you. It is completely online and will help you schedule the jobs, log time on each task, track parts orders, and take pictures of the work. You can even export your jobs from My Shop Assist into QuickBooks as invoices. So if you're interested to improve operations at your shop, check out myshopassist.com to start your 30-day free trial. Okay, Nathan, so we kind of got into the background of the Top Speed Motorsports, and we've touched on it several times, but you changed the name to Cicio Performance. Tell us why you did that. I mean, obviously, you've had some issues with taking over from somebody else, essentially the brand, and then wanting to redo what you're doing with the business. I think was a really detailed, background on what you're trying to accomplish. So go ahead and take us into the name change.
Yeah, the name change is it's quite a bit more than a name change. It's a very brand, kind of roots of the brand change, or merge, if you will. And I'll just be 100% forthright on your show here. I would say probably it was about this time last year that I started really considering my future. I was 39 years old last year. I was going to turn 40 at the end of the year, and I was working. I mean, there's just no way to put a number on the amount of hours, and the stresses were really starting to get to me. The financial stresses were getting to me. We were growing, and we grew at a very rapid rate. Employees, and it was becoming a lot, and I was starting to try to figure out whether I wanted this to be my future, what was I going to do? Was I going to be 60, 70 years old and running this tuner shop, and I didn't want to continue to react to the daily grind of this industry and then turn around like I did last year and look back and go, holy crap, that was a decade of my life, what's the next decade gonna yield? Is it just gonna be the next 500 horsepower, the next 1,000 horsepower? Or we're gonna be 4,000 horsepower GTRs instead of 3,000 horsepower GTRs? Like, where am I going?
Right, I see.
And and it was just like I really started doing some soul searching. And, of course, talk to my dad, talk to my brother, talk to the, loved ones, people that I know in my life, just trying to figure out whether there was a way to decrease some stress on myself and continue along the lines of, of doing what I'm doing. And really the what it came down to was, yes, 100%, I want to do what I set out to do when I was young, or wanted to do when I was young, and that is be a cornerstone in this industry, this performance automotive area. That's what I really want to do. It's what I've wanted to do since I was young. But I didn't see myself becoming that. I didn't see myself becoming that leader. I didn't see myself steering the ship, if you will, into what I wanted it to be. I just continued to see myself just, every day just trying to make it all happen, to keep all these balls in the air. And it was really starting to get to me. So about the middle of the year, I decided, hey, listen, I really want to start doing, some more, so a little bit more manufacturing, but then, team up with some people and start doing some more package work. I want to start growing that portion of the brand, where it's like, you aspire to have this package on your car, because of the accomplishments and the proof to the pudding that it puts out. It's one area that, this is a sensitive subject in our industry, but it's one area where I believe that Hennessy did a very good job. Again, it's a sore subject, right? I mean,
yeah, but I mean, he puts out a ton of cars and sells a pile of, I guess, packages. So it's not like there are obviously the sore subject is there are some people that feel like they've got totally hosed or screwed or ripped off, or that he's a scam artist. But there are lots of people. I think
is an understatement, but
yeah,
sure.
Yeah, but there are others who are happy with their whatever vehicle they bought with his package on it. So I mean, he obviously succeeded in building a package that people are willing to buy. Whether or not people got ripped off, that's a different question, right?
Yeah, and that's his whole market. The whole market is the Hennessy 800, the Hennessy 1000, the Hennessy. Is this whole business model, and the business model worked very good for him to sustain through what he actually put the people through. It has to be a decent business model. But anyway, so it's something I decided, hey, listen, I want to steer this a little bit more towards that, because the continued keeping up with what is going on in the GTR world is not necessarily something I want to give all of my efforts to. Not to mention the fact that, the GTR world it's on the decline right now. I mean, it's happened to every single car platform that there is. It's got a rise and a peak and a fall, and we're in the fall. It's not like it's horrible or gloom and doom or whatever, but it is definitely.
There's only so many cars you can put a kit on, right?
Right. Exactly. So, anyway, so I kind of started thinking I wanted to steer some stuff a little bit as far as energy is concerned, to be a little bit smarter about, what we were doing is with packaging, with web development, with SEO work, with our social and online media, with video, all of it, just instead of the sporadic, we want to race, here's a big video and here's a post, and then you don't hear from us for a little bit, and just some more consistency to the situation. Anyway, in really kind of having that soul search, again, looking towards future, I'm like, okay, I'm turning 40 this year. What's this place going to look like when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old? And do I want to have put literally my entire life's work into a brand that, frankly, I didn't agree with or like when I started working for it, much less when I started, when I purchased the book of business and named the company. I had no emotional tie to it whatsoever. Okay. I had no thought process of the fact that it had to be a certain way and certain things had to be in line, because it was just kind of me taking over I don't want to call it a shit show. Can you swear on this?
Yeah, absolutely.
The kind of shit show that it was, and I was almost just taking that over, and I just didn't like it. I had never liked it, and I came to the realization about how much I really didn't like it about mid last year. Okay. And so, yes, so the name, obviously, I was young, something I've always wanted to do. I looked up to all these people that have put their name on their legacy, and had been extremely successful. And of course, now we know them all as brands or as modification houses or whatever it may be. But like when you start going and looking at the history of cars, it is really hard to find any type of manufacturer, any type of big current known name that didn't start with a family name. It's insane when you start looking at it.
Yeah, and what's so funny is a lot of like businesses, books, and when you hear about people like teaching you how to like start a business, they all tell you not to use your name because you can't sell the business because it's your name, right? But that's not at all the case.
No, it's not. It's not, because it's not the case, because, this is what I think. I think that the people that are doing that in books are looking at too small of a scale.
Sure.
Because no, you can't sell the business to your neighbor down the street that knows your last name, right? And that, their kids play with your kids, but you could sell the business to Fiat, right? Like, right? Like you're thinking too small if you think that you can't, sell or grow, with a partner or something, a family named business. I mean, that's just silly. I mean, nobody's going to not buy Ferrari because Enzo Ferrari started it, and it was his last name,
Yeah, and
same
Ford
thing.
and Porsche and Mercedes, and I think all those are last names of people, aren't
All
they?
of, I mean, Aston, Rolls Royce. I mean, you name it. Like literally, McLaren. You name it. They all came from a family name, every single one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple that haven't, but
BMW would be the only one I can think of that isn't, right? I guess Volkswagen is not either, but
yes, but BMW didn't start in cars. That's why I give them a pass. But yeah, there definitely are a couple, but it's amazing the percentages that are. So anyway, here nor there, I'm certainly not trying to do that because I'm like, oh, I'm going to be, Enzo Ferrari one day or whoever, Bruce McLaren. But when I was young, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to build a brand. I wanted to build a brand around I back then I really did want the family name on it, and the name it's catchy. It works. I mean, it's worked my whole life. People started when I was in college calling me Ciccio, and I'd never had a first name for about 15 years. Nobody even knew what my first name was.
Yeah, even that's how I knew your name for quite a while too, was Ciccio.
Yeah, exactly. Most people did. I mean, if you don't know who I am on Facebook, most people didn't even know what my first name was. So anyway, so it worked, and it's something that I has just decided that if I'm going to turn this business a little bit towards some more sustainable, what I feel like is a more sustainable business model, and I'm going to think about the fact that I am literally going to be, this is the investment of my life. This is my legacy. This is what I'm going to look back on. This is what people are going to look at me and say, this is what this guy created. I don't want to do it with something that I didn't start. That wasn't my passion. It wasn't my vision. It wasn't an extension of me. It was an extension of somebody else. And it was a very tough decision. I mean, it took me months and months to decide to pull the trigger on the thing. And it wasn't literally until right after my 40th birthday that I was like, you know what? I'm not going to spend another 30 years of my life knowing that I wanted to do this and not. So the name change it's important. The brand, the brand awareness changes or the brand change as far as exactly the direction that it's going is I would say more important. But it's interesting because I have more drive, and everything means more to me now. It's crazy. Okay. Like everything we do, everything we put our hands on means more to me now. Like the TSM logo some guy did online that I paid to do online, probably in Indonesia or something, and sent it to me, and I was like, okay, cool, that looks good enough, and I just put it up. The Cicio Performance logo was 300 and something revisions.
All right.
So, like I was like, no, I don't like exactly the way that C. Nope, I don't like that one. Nope. I mean, it was like everything down to how tedious the technicians are, how clean the shop is. Everything for some reason is taking this like new turn for me personally since this decision has been made, even before the announcement. But once I decided I'm going to do this for the rest of my life, this is going to be a legacy. This is going to be what I'm known for. And ever since I decided that, it's been this transition, this shift. And that may sound silly for people that are like, oh, it's a multi-million-dollar company with, whatever, 16, 17 employees that you've done for a decade, and you didn't know that was what you were doing. No, I didn't. I didn't. And I think that anybody in this industry could kind of look and say that there was a point in their life, or maybe they're even there right now, that they didn't know that they were going to keep this grind up until they retired. Because this ain't an easy thing to do.
No, it's not.
It's not at all. So there is a lot of people probably where they are right now, and a lot of people that definitely could look back on a time that they said, I'd been doing this for 5, 10, 15 years, and that's not what I want to end up doing. Eric Gowdy's a great example of that. It's just like he was 13 years in and decided, the stresses of this they're getting to me. It's affecting my health. I got to go.
Right.
So anyway, so that's the brand transition. That's the name change. It's something I'm very excited and proud of, and I think that in 5 years, it will be shown to be the best decision that we've ever made as far as the direction of the company, both in the name and the brand, and in kind of adjusting some of our thinking for longevity versus the quick shot of how are we going to get this car to the racetrack next weekend, and how are we going to go faster than the guy next door.
Right. So tell us about the shop now. You said you have 2 locations. How big are the spaces that you're in? Do you own them? Do you rent them? And where are they at again? You said it's Atlanta, and where's the other one? Virginia?
Yes. Yeah, so there's one in Virginia Beach, Virginia. They're both locations are rented.
Okay.
The one in Georgia, I have a lease to buy option. We've been with it's been the same location since Doug started it back in the day. And the owner of the building is just a super, they're wonderful people. And so right now I'm on a lease to purchase, or with an option. So whether we'll end up doing that or not, I don't know. The space here is probably not as big as I really need. Right now we're about 10,000, a little over 10,000 square feet.
Okay.
But we're busting at the seams. And so I'm actually trying to decide that right now, whether we're going to, buy here and expand, or whether I'm going to look, a little bit further outside of the city.
Okay.
A little bit and decide what we want to do. But the thought of shutting down the business for 30 days and moving it makes me want to throw up in my mouth.
Right. But maybe that's on par with your whole switch with Cicio Performance. And I mean, it really sounds to me like you took a step back to analyze what everything was going to make it more professional and start over with something new that was like, I guess, bringing that professionalism to the industry and to the business that you expect and want, right? And that maybe that entails something, a new building too, right?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. As of right now, I really like the position I'm in as far as the area that I'm in. I like the locations that I'm in right now, and I like who I'm renting from right now and my options there as far as future investment, because the property values here are going up in Georgia quite a lot. So I'm already kind of in a good place. So we'll see. I don't know that 100% yet. The place in Virginia is very new. That's a rented facility as well. I did just completely redo that facility as far as, renovations and flooring and all that fun jazz, and put up a couple more lifts. That business, I probably will end up moving that business slightly, because I don't like the space that it's in, but the way that the whole deal went down, I had to lock it in for a couple of years in the space that it was in, which we won't get into too much. But yeah, so renting in both locations, one with an option to purchase, and pretty much busting at the seams in both areas, in both spaces. The one up there is
how old is that location?
The one up north?
Yeah.
We started that in September of 19, so
okay,
not
so
old.
really pretty recently. Okay. And what made you want?
Doing great though.
What made you want to start a second location?
We'll see if this was a smart idea. Well, First of all, I believe that the market has gotten a little bit oversaturated, and I wanted to be able to service a different area of the country, instead of, relying on trying to get people to ship their car to you all the time.
Oh, sure. Okay, I see. So
you know,
you're saying the market in your, Georgia area was saturated.
No, I'm saying the industry has more options now
Oh,
than
okay.
they did, say, 10 years ago
Mhm.
or whatever. And so it's harder to get people to ship their car to you
Okay.
because they've got some little podunk shop
Oh,
that's
okay.
convincing them that they can do it
Yes, okay.
just as good.
Sure.
So that's one aspect of it. Two, like, unless you become a major manufacturer, there's only so many ways to make money in this industry, right? You
Right.
have to figure out how many cars you can put out the back door. Well, if the back door is only 12 by 12, you can only deliver so many cars.
Yes.
And so, like, if you start looking at revenue streams, it's like, okay, cool. Well, these people are making the money, and we got this many parts sales that kind of get shipped or whatever. But like, as far as the shop is concerned, it's expand to make more money, right?
Yeah.
If you've got the work to do it. And I didn't necessarily want to do it all here. I wanted to be able to branch out a little bit. I've always wanted 3 locations. I don't know why. I've just always had it in my head that we were going to have 3 locations. And the Northeast kind of area, Virginia is not necessarily Northeast, but it's a lot easier to reach into the Northeast than it is from Georgia.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, my family still lives they still have, my brother still lives in New York, and my family still has contacts up there. It's an easy place for me to kind of branch into as far as the Northeast was concerned. So I was going to do something in New York with my brother, but what happened is I got dropped in my lap where a business was going out of business, a shop was going out of business, and they, offered me to purchase the equipment and take over the lease, and so I made that decision and did it.
Okay. So you got started with a place and equipment for probably pennies on the dollar, right?
Yeah. I probably gave the guy a little bit more. I don't necessarily know that I want to go into that. Yes, I got a pretty good deal, but the whole place, in order to be up to my standards and as far as the size, needed to be renovated. So I had to rent the place next door, which was a conjoined place, and knock down all the walls,
Mhm.
and do. So I put like I put almost $30,000 into a rented property just to make it so that I could function in it.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I got it for, the lifts and the tire machine and the tools that were there for a pretty good deal. But at the end of the whole thing, looking back,
still a
it
bunch of
doesn't
money.
mean yes, exactly. It was necessarily a great deal.
Okay.
The real blessing about that place has been the people. I mean, the guys that were up there that I hired have been doing a great job. And then I actually hired one of my customers to run that shop.
Okay.
And he moved from Florida to Virginia to run that location for me, and that has just been a godsend. It's been super, super neat. But I'll tell you one thing that this will be interesting to some listeners probably. One thing that place has really made me realize is how much processes are important to the success of what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not believe that there's anywhere near as many processes in our industry that than there needs to be. And so I put a bunch of processes in place here at my shop in Georgia over the course of the last 10 years. And, recording stuff as far as, what parts are ordered, what parts aren't, how to track projects, how to, make sure a project's profitable, how to track guys' time, technicians' time, and whether those, how profitable each technician is based on the job, and all of that stuff. And then checks and balances between technicians, as far as, there being multiple sets of eyes on things before there's, you get
quality control.
Yes, I have stopping points. Yeah, exactly. Where, you have to get a sign off from another technician in order to go past that stopping point. And then, after a car comes off the dyno, there's a big checklist that has to be done before it gets completely buttoned, and then before the customer takes delivery, because I have checks and balances in place to try to keep the quality as high as it can be. And sometimes when you're reacting constantly, that isn't easy to do. But it is amazing to me how duplicatable that became or was when I implemented it into the shop up there.
So you've documented all this, like all this stuff's written down, or you have it documented somehow, right? Because that's the hard part is like you can have a system, but if the people don't have it, if it's not written down, the next guy who comes to take in over you is he's going to do his own way, right?
Right. And that the writing things down has been something that has kind of quickly become more important as the two locations have started coexisting. So I'd say I probably had, we'll call 50% of what we just knew to do actually in, like, we'll call it a handbook, which never was really a handbook, but and now it's like, constantly on a weekly basis, we're updating and or turning a verbal process into a written process.
Sure.
In anticipation for there being another location that I believe is even going to be bigger than both of these.
Okay.
So yeah, that's been something that's been super interesting that I don't think very many shops in the country do.
Definitely not.
That is so important. It's so important to your sanity. It's so important to consistency. Like, it does not matter who is putting that car together. It's like, the guy has a bad day, or his wife got mad at him, or this or that or whatever. Like, if you don't have processes and checks and balances, and then for quality control, and then the same thing on the financial side of things, so you're actually looking at a picture saying, oh gosh, this was, let's not do one of those jobs again. But there's so many of these shops that are just like, oh man, we got $100,000 build in, cool, and then that's it. Like, you never look into it any further as to how much money it made, when it made money, when you delivered that car, how long it was spanned across your overhead. Like, people don't realize that. They don't think about that. I mean, of course, there's some people that do. I'm sure there's people that are way smarter than me doing this that are even looking at it more in depth than I am. But I know when I started, 7-8 years ago, all I cared about was how I was getting the next build.
Right.
And then it was like, oh wow, this is $100,000, or this is $75,000 build, and you're putting out work, and that's the focus, not necessarily how long it's taken you, what the liability was, what the risk was if that motor blew up, so on and so forth, and the list goes on and on. So anyway, those processes have been really fun to refine as that other shop it has been injected and growing, because I realized how important they actually were more than ever when that happened. Well, and the other thing that made me realize that is because I was bouncing between shops because I wasn't always at one of them. And
so you yourself were traveling back and forth between them.
Oh yeah. So from September until this month, till January. Well, I guess are we in February now?
Yeah.
Yeah, till January. I was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday here, Thursday, Friday, Saturday there, come home Sunday every week, which was quite interesting. But, so you got to leave one shop that's churning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You fly out Thursday morning, so you're gone. But the shop that's in Virginia is functioning those 3 days without you, and then you're there in Virginia for the next couple of days, and you have to, the processes. Like I said, that's where it became so, because as the owner, you're the guy that's like, oh yeah, did you remember to do this? Oh yeah, did you remember to do that? Oh, you're the guy that's kind of doing that. But when you're not there, you got to figure out. One, you have to figure out your chain of command real quick, fast, and in a hurry. And two, you have to make sure you have processes that create the checks and balances that you would normally naturally create just being there.
Yeah.
So it was really, I won't say it's only, whatever it is, 6 months in. It's been and will continue to be a very interesting growing experience for the company. It's been really neat.
Okay. So you're essentially managing. We kind of talk about this in general terms, but you're managing the business and you're not doing the work anymore, right?
No, yeah. So any work that I do that's actually in the shop, as far as putting my hand on a wrench, is just on my personal car. Okay. Something that wrench therapy, if you will. That's the only time I'm ever actually wrenching. I used to a lot. Okay. But not anymore. And I do it to an extent sometimes, but like I said, it's just like on a Saturday when I'm like, you know what, I'm going to, put this exhaust on my car and I'm going to go up there and do it myself and turn on some tunes and just go up there and enjoy it. So I am very in depth. I'm very involved in all of the mechanical work that goes on, and I'm also very involved in the machine shop side of things,
Mm-hmm.
as far as all the details for bearing clearances and what type of materials we're using on piston rings and pistons and springs, retainers, valves, seat pressures, all of that stuff I'm very interested in. It's something I love. I really like engines. So my machine shop is only about 20 minutes away from us. John Causey Race Engines, who's just they've been a godsend. They're just savant freaking geniuses over there. But it's been really fun going over there and learning that side of things more than I had before, even though that I knew a good amount of it. And then being as involved as I am in it is something I'm very proud of, because I don't just get a motor from a machine shop and put it in the car. I can't do that. I get to see the successes and the failures of what the engines do. And I know what was in that engine, and I know what the clearances were, and I know what what pistons we used. I know what valves we used. I know we tried a new set of springs or so on and so forth. And then I also am very, very hands-on with the tuning side of things. I don't tune anymore. I used to. I have a tuner now, but we are constantly hashing over logs together. If we're in an event, I'm in the trailer sitting right next to him. What do you think we should do? This, that, so I know how much timing, how much boost, how much, what we did, what air to fuels we ran. And so seeing that whole picture has been really cool for me. I don't necessarily lay a hand on a wrench, but I'm in the middle of it all as far as mechanically, and I don't have like a foreman. I'm the foreman.
Okay.
So like if I have a head tech that's very smart and makes a lot of decisions without me, but like the buck stops mechanically with me, which I'm proud of. And there's a kind of view, I would say, of me in the industry that I'm just this salesman. Because I'm good at sales and I like people a lot. I like being able to talk to people. I like being on camera. I enjoy that side of things. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people don't realize, that the mechanical and detailed aspects of everything that goes on, whether it's design of a turbo kit that we're doing, whether it's the design of a catch can or something like that, and airflow. I'm constantly studying that type of stuff, and I love being in the middle of all that. So I go and spend days at the machine shop, and then when it comes to the actual putting the cars together, I'm very involved in, how we torque the heads and, how the oiling system works and how we're making it better and designing products for that and so on and so forth. It's something the technical side of something is really something I enjoy a ton. Okay. I'm not an engineer by trade. I'm just a guy that loves the mechanics of it and can sit in here and figure out how it works and how to make it better. That's something that I enjoy a lot.
How did you get over the hurdle of, so if you did work on the cars in the past, how did you get over the hurdle of trusting your guys to do that? And I mean, you said you put systems in place like quality control stuff. I presume you're not the only one that's doing the quality controls, and kind of describe to me how you're managing this, the techs and the quality control and making sure the work is the way you want it to be.
That wasn't actually very hard for me. I think probably because I was never just the mechanic.
Okay.
So like we have a lot of shop owners. Let's say let's pull, yeah, okay, there you go. Right. So let's pull Mac, right, from Command the Shop Houston, right? Like sure. That guy, like he's the guy, right? Like he was the owner of the Command or whatever, and he was the guy wrenching on all the cars all the time, right? I never was that guy. Like I would help. Like I'd be back there. I could pull a motor. I could build a motor. I'd pull a trans. Get me in front of a toolbox and give me a car. I can figure out how it works, and I can do the mechanical side of things. I'm not scared of anything, and I dove into a lot of stuff because of that. But I was always half that and half the business side of things, or the marketing side of things, or the customer service side of things. And then very quickly it started merging to the point where I was, 30% mechanically wrenches hands-on and 70%. But I was never just, I'm the guy in the shop, because I didn't start, well, I was, but I guess that was when I lived in North Dakota and I was 20, right? Yeah. So the transition of trusting technicians, it wasn't that hard for me. just I guess because I had never felt the sense of a like not control. I wasn't controlling in that area. I was trusting. I
Okay.
was like, I hired the right guy. I would check his work. There was as much checks and balances in it as there could be at the time, and that trust issue was not necessarily a hard thing for me, and that's because I never was. I didn't start the business as the guy that was just doing all the work and doing all the wrenching and doing all the tuning, and then hire another
Okay.
guy and then try to train him. That's not what I did. It wasn't the way I came into the industry.
Yeah, so
Um,
you don't
so
have the problem that I have where I don't trust anybody to do the quality work that I do. So I
no,
don't have anybody.
no, I don't. Yeah, no, I don't have that problem. And that is a problem, by the way, in case you were
Oh, I
wondering.
already know. Yeah, I know.
No, I don't. And now I have more on the side of the marketing, of how we're portrayed, what the videos look like, what the pictures look like, how my staff is talking to customers, how that customer feels. I'm very much more controlling of that than I am my guys, but I also have checks and balances in the point right now where I trust my guys. I trust them. And like you were like, nobody can do this as good as me, and I'm like, nobody can do this side of the business as good as me, but my head tech Billings, like I'm not gonna go tell him that I'm a better mechanic than him, because it's not
Right.
true.
Right.
Like when it comes to problem solving, maybe I'm as good or a little bit better than some of my staff, because I'm really good at that. So if we're having an issue with an engine and I come in and I'm like, what do you think about this? What do you think? Well, how about that? And it's like, oh, light bulbs go off, and yeah, okay, great. I'm really good at problem solving. But when it comes to the details of wrenching on the car, I've got guys that I trust. They trust each other. They checks and balance each other's work, and it works out really, really, really well.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's never been an issue for me.
Okay. And what tools are you using? I'm assuming you probably use QuickBooks, but when you have two locations, are you doing two separate QuickBookses then, or how are you managing the business as far as software goes?
Yeah, I do have two. This was a really tough decision, actually. We do use QuickBooks. I hate it, but it works. Um, and yeah, we have two completely different QuickBook files with access to each other's. And they're
Okay, so
mirrored.
they're like served or something. You have a server for them.
Yeah,
Okay.
kind of.
Okay.
But yeah, so we have access to each other's, and they're mirrored, but they're two different files. The
Sure.
companies are actually two different LLCs.
Okay.
Just because my lawyer told me that was,
Sure.
my lawyer and my CPA told me that was the smartest way to do it.
Okay.
So they have their own bank account, their own credit card. We have our own bank account, our own credit card, our own QuickBooks are completely separate. They're two separate companies. They're just under the same umbrella.
Okay.
So yeah, and then we have a pretty intense tracking system for builds that I utilize Google Docs for. And then it's tied together, the north and the
Sure.
south shop, as far as that's concerned. But I have a pretty intense thing that I've built over the course of probably the last 3 or 4 years. The tracks, builds and parts ordering and finances and how much money per day the technicians are making us, and all of that fun jazz. I continue to add to it all the time, but it's literally just like a massive master, basically, like Excel sheet, if you will, with some a little bit more robust database style stuff on the back side of it.
One of these days, I'm going to get over. I've showed you MSA before, but one of these days, I'm going to show you our new one, and it'll blow your mind.
Okay, yeah. No, I mean, I'm not scared of that whatsoever. I love keeping track of things. I love organization.
It's amazing, isn't it? How useful that is.
Oh my gosh! I mean, that's my main thing in the morning, every single morning, and this is something that I think every shop should do. So this is good. Information. Every single morning, I come in and I take all of the sheets that my technicians do. So my technicians, they write a sheet for
Sure.
every single car every single day that
Okay.
they work on. And every single morning I come in and I take those sheets and I input them into the system based on how many hours did they work,
Yes.
how many hours did they bill,
Yeah.
how many, what parts did they use,
Sure.
so that we're not missing anything.
Uh-huh.
And then what notes do they have on what the car needs, or, what would be a good idea, or so on and so forth. Because I learned a long time ago that verbal communication for every aspect of a company that has this many moving parts absolutely just does not
No,
work.
it does not. No.
You think it does because that's the way you kind of started, right?
Yeah, right.
It's like, but it's insane how much stuff doesn't find its way to the place it's supposed to be, or how much stuff you're then putting out fires or reacting to instead of it just being taken care of. So every single day, it's every part that was used the day before gets put on invoices, and if they're not on invoices, and that's technicians bringing it to me in writing on a document. Every hour that the technician works is documented, and then at the association of those hours with the billable hours to that job, and then that goes in the system to where it breaks the job down, and I have a system that breaks the job down by percentage of completion and allows me to understand how much revenue I'm creating by each technician's work each day.
Okay.
For both shops, and it's something that it's just a great thing. It's an eye opener. It works great. It really is an awesome. It's changed the business and how I think about things as well, because so many people don't even look at it. They don't even look at what's making them money, and what's, like if you ask most shop owners like what your most profitable job is and how long that took and how much how long their average time of a car on their property is, and all of these crucial data points to running a company, 90% of these the shops have no idea.
Yep.
And it's not a bad on them. It's not like there's no judgment to it. It's just like most shops are not run by business people. They're run by mechanics.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And this is like my passion, like trying to figure out, how to improve the business. And you cannot do this business, and like you were talking earlier, like years ago, you were like constantly just putting out fires and you had no direction, and everything was just about getting the next car and to get some more money coming in the shop. And that becomes such a big problem for everybody that they're not able to improve on any of the systems to the point where they actually can be profitable. So
I know.
So I'm in the same, we just described that I have the problem of not trusting other people to do the work, which is a big problem. So I'm stuck with myself and my business partner, Richard, and he's here only half time. So it's 1.5 guy shop. However, I have done, I basically have the same, we use a different method of doing it. I use my shop assist, you use your homebrew system that you set up, but we're both tracking the same information. So I'm able to do all the shop management myself and do all the wrenching and still be more efficient than like 3 and 4 person shops. I can do more revenue by myself simply by the fact I've streamlined the system such that, like writing an estimate for somebody takes me 5 seconds. I can do a full engine build in literally a minute. I can tell you exactly what it's going to cost for an Evo because I've gone through and I added all the parts into my database. I have the pricing. I have the way to mark them as what needs to be ordered and when I receive it and where to put it. So I have all that information, and it sounds exactly like you have done the same thing at your shop. And now because it worked out so well, you were able to scale it to another shop and get that thing rolling quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, that was honestly mind-blowing to me. I was like, just what you just said, scale it to another shop and get it running quickly and efficiently quickly. It's just like, wow. You don't even have to have the very best people if you have a process for those people to work in. And the check and balances for it. Yeah, it's been a great thing. And I'm not there yet. Every single, I want to say day, but it's weekly where I'm like, oh, you know what, we need to implement this, or you know what, we're still behind on this, or we're still getting our butt kicked here. And like, it is consistent that I'm trying to find new ways to make it better and make it more efficient and make it more organized, because like,
but you think
not
about
to mention the fact that
you have put yourself in the place where you can actually spend the time to think about this stuff and realize where the problem areas are and actually do something about it. Think of all the shops that, you go to these races and the guys are they got their heads buried in the car and they look like they've been, like working for 45 hours straight because they are doing the work and they're trying to deal with all the cars, and they don't have any systems in place, so they're just stuck kind of like putting out fires, and you can actually go put out the real fires that matter.
Yeah, it's actually scary. It really is. The space, and I said I wanted to talk about this a little bit, but the space of our industry right now is becoming, to me, more and more terrifying by the week. And the reason is that you have these, it's easier than ever to look like a way bigger deal or way better at this than you are.
Right.
It's so easy.
Social media and marketing can be very deceiving.
It is insane how easy it is to go out there, and you don't have to have any proof to the pudding. It's crazy to me. Like 20 years ago, I mean, the saying was 100% true. You win on Sunday, you sell on Monday.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because that's how you proved that you were consistent. It's how you proved that you knew what you were doing, and how you proved that your car was going to stay together. That was the proof to the pudding. And nowadays, it's how many followers you have on Instagram.
Yep.
I'm not kidding. It's crazy to me. Like, people are literally picking shops based on, who gets more likes on pictures on Instagram and Facebook than they are on the consistency of their builds. Not all of them, of course, but like it's scary. And then you have these younger shops that are then trying to keep up with the Joneses and quite frankly, putting people's lives at risk doing it. Because just like you just said, you've got a guy that doesn't sleep for 72 hours, or doesn't sleep, has got his head buried in something, and working on cars that are going faster than they really should be, right? Like faster than any of these cars. Some of these GTRs, like if anybody would have said, hey, we're going to have a 3,000 horsepower 6 cylinders, 15 years ago, we'd all laughed at them,
Yeah.
But yeah, so you have the ability to make these cars faster than they've ever been with these packages that have come out. The industry has gone, kind of like it's almost the norm. So the customers aren't necessarily as alert about it. And then you have all these, social media shops, I'll call them, springing up that are overnight quote unquote successes in way over their head, risking people's lives putting these cars together that they have no processes or checks and balances to put together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's scary. It is extremely scary, and I don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know the longevity of that system or that setup is I don't know. It's getting worse and worse. I mean, I don't know. Am I wrong? Do you see it?
Well, yes, I see that lots of people start shops that have little to no experience and then make themselves appear to be very experienced, or they have like a tiny little like 1,000 square foot shop and you would think they have like 500 cars there, or much larger than they are. And I see that. However, the good news is I do also see I see people and I can't take credit for this, but I hope that maybe Reed, who started the podcast, can take credit for it, in that we have kind of brought to light the need to professionalize some of this industry. And, we talk to people at all these, like, I guess, quote unquote, successful shops. I know some of them are very successful and some of them are probably still even deceitfully smaller than you think they are, who we interview. But I think that professionalism is kind of bringing to the forefront the need to not just be a mechanic. You have to have some business sense, and you have to have actual, like systems in place to be able to be successful and not just be in and out in a year. Because I deal with competition all the time that's in and out in a year here, even in DFW with the Evo stuff. And I've been around since 2005, I guess, so 15 years of this. And people always say, "Oh, go to this shop," and I'm like, well, I haven't heard of them, but you probably won't hear of them again in about a year from now. So
right,
sure,
right.
That's kind of the mentality I take to it. Like, go ahead. It's not going to bother me at all. I've seen it. So.
Yeah, and I admire a lot what you are doing, and hope that more people can get on board, and spread the reality of what it takes to be in this industry, the reality of what it takes to actually service a customer the way that customer deserves to be serviced, and really just kind of bring the cream of the crop to the top, and kind of shine light on the things that just are swept under the rug in this industry, because it is, again, I've never been a huge player in any other industry, but it is really bad how much of it happens in ours. But anyway.
Yeah. So moving on here, we've had a very good discussion, and I've had to skip a ton of questions so we don't run this thing out to 3 hours long. But let's kind of close this out here. Give us an idea of your 1 or 5 year plans between the two businesses. I know you've already mentioned you want to have 3 shops. Do you have an idea of when you want to implement that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, right now it's a decision as to whether to take on an investor and or try to wait until I can finance it myself.
Okay.
That's really the decision right now, and I'm just going to let that kind of play out. The Virginia shop kind of fell in my lap. It's working very well, and I'm not going to rush into something that isn't smart. So, and let's just be honest here. I'm still refining processes. I'm still learning how to be a better business owner. I'm still learning how to be better to my customers, build a better product, a more consistent product, and I don't want to jump into the deep end of the pool unless I know that I can swim.
Okay.
So I've got a little bit of more learning, some more stuff to put in place before I'm ready to know that the third shop is going to be. I know that it could be a success based on the name, but I want it to be a very well run company.
Yeah.
Because I want it to propel us into the next couple of decades of business.
Right, and that basically just making sure that number 2 can stand on its own feet without you having to be there every other week, right? Or every week, essentially.
Yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely, and which is starting to happen. I'm up there every other now,
okay.
And it's good. So, anyway, so yes, that's probably, I would say, probably a year, maybe 2 years down the road would be my aggressive goal.
Okay.
And again, I do want that shop to be bigger than both the other ones. So that's another side of things. I'm not just going to go start a one bay garage.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's that side of things. As far as my future and the goals, really honestly, I'm just working as hard as I possibly can at refining how well I am serving the community or the customers,
okay.
and how well my team is meshing and working together to create an unparalleled product.
Okay.
My focus in Cicio Performance is back to the roots of just bringing smiles to car people's faces, just outright joy. I think that a lot of us lose that in building the fastest or being the fastest or shooting for some record. And at the end of the day here, we're serving car people to create something that is the love of their life. It's other than their wife or their kids, maybe, it's the thing that brings them happiness. It's the thing that melts stress away. It's the thing that they enjoy. It's their passion. It's their hobby,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that there's so much destruction in the industry to an extent that you've run there. We've run a lot of people. I haven't, but the industry has run a lot of good people out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And my main goal is to just stop that as much as possible, and to just go back to bringing people happiness with automobiles, and instilling that joy in them, whether it's, the guy that wins the race that's got the fastest record car because that's what he knows he's signed up for, and he didn't get bamboozled into thinking that car was going to run for 10 years straight without him putting 10 cents in it. Right.
Or that's a whole discussion in itself of deceit and how long these cars last at 3,000 horsepower or whatever. Right.
That's a whole nother branch down, but listen, if that's the goal, and that's what's bringing that guy joy, is shooting after that record, and he knows what it's going to take to get there, then great, that's awesome. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the deceit of trying to get the money in the door and telling the guy that it's gonna be a lot easier, going to cost less, or last longer than it will. And some of it's lack of knowledge, and some of it's just lying. Anyway, so whether it's that or whether it's literally just the guy that wants the little package that's got the mildly upgraded turbo and the exhaust and makes cool noises, and he goes out in his garage and hits the key and drives it to work, and it puts a smile on his face every day, whether he's fighting with his girlfriend or whether whatever it is,
Right.
it's your out, and I just want to give that to people. I want to be focused on making sure we're serving the industry to maintain it for the next 2, 3, 4 decades, to make it better, to invest back in it. And I mean, I know that sounds like, oh yeah, this guy's just, throwing a bunch of crap out there, but it's not. It's 100% true. I want to sustain this industry for its future, and I don't. Yes, I want to make money. Of course, I want to make money, but I've also come to the realization that I'm never going to make some type of multi-millions of dollars doing this. It's just never. It's not going to happen.
You're not going to make investment banker or hedge fund money.
No, not in the cards.
Right.
It's just not there. So, the passion is, and the goal is not necessarily. The focus is, live a comfortable life, of course, financially, but really add to this industry in a positive way, and don't be destructive. And even when it comes to working with your fellow owners, like that's something that I've really started working on lately as much as I could, is to these guys, nobody that owns the shop that's even right down the street from you is your enemy.
No.
These people need to learn. Now, if they're doing stuff that's shady, or not right, then okay, but at least give them the chance to say, hey, listen, that's probably not how you should do that, or the customer told me this, is that true? You probably shouldn't say that anymore, or whatever. And then, if the guy's a scumbag, he's a scumbag, right? I mean, there isn't we're all not in here for the same goals, but like reaching out and actually helping our fellow owners of these shops, whether it be, I just had a great conversation last night with Joe, the guy that runs WRX Performance, and
Okay.
they're 35 minutes from us, and we've had a huge rivalry in the past, but like that's not where we're at anymore,
Yeah.
because if I work with him and he works with me, and either of our customers are happier or either of our engines are more reliable, all it does is grow the industry.
Yes.
Because if I don't sell him something, we were talking about fire rings for the GTR, and people are like, why would you sell him the thing that makes it so that his engines last longer? Well, because if I don't sell him that, and his customer's head gasket blows, and he continues to have problems, and then his customer's buddy asks him, hey, listen, I'm thinking about buying a GTR and modding it, his customer is going to be like, no, don't do that. This has sucked. I've blown my head gasket twice. Like cost me, $15,000 or whatever it did. Like the industry isn't going to grow in a positive direction if we're not helping each other. And I'm not saying like give the keys to the kingdom to every single person or whatever, but like, crucially, I've been trying very hard to not look at my competition as enemies, but rather, look at them in a healthy, competitive way, and know you don't want them to beat you, and know you don't want to give away everything, but at the same time, if they're trying to build this community in a similar fashion as you're trying to build this community, then you need to be on their team, because it isn't going to hurt your sales. I promise you.
No.
It is absolutely not going to hurt your market share if his customers are happier, because what the goal would be is to make it so there's more work for everybody, and not tearing this community apart so that nobody wants to go to the races together, because that shop hates that shop, and I'm a customer of this shop and you're a customer of that shop, but we're supposed to be buddies because we have the same kind of car, but we can't be friends because I'm at this shop and you're at that shop, and those owners hate each other.
Right.
That's the dumbest thing in the world. Like
it is a rampant problem on Facebook, but yes, it shouldn't be a problem.
No, it should not. It absolutely should not be a problem. There's no reason for it whatsoever. This community should be an enjoyable, fun community. Nobody actually down deep enjoys the hatred of each other or the division. It's not right. You can want to beat somebody's ass and not come anywhere near your quarter mile time or your half mile time, and then still go have a beer with them. And still enjoy them if you do it correctly. And so that's something I've been working on really, really a lot as well, is just making sure that the people that are positively investing in the industry, I'm positively investing in them, whether it's selling them something they need to make their program better, whether it's talking to them like I'm talking to you and helping them with a business, or the vice versa, or getting information and help from somebody. I think that's extremely powerful and something that we need to continue to do each other. So that's another thing that I'm focusing on as the future rolls out. And then, of course, we're merging into packages as much as we can. The GTR, it's kind of a lost cause when it comes to packages. I mean, yes, we have a few packages. Yes, we're going to push them. But the cars are getting older. More of them are being bought with parts on them already, and so on and so forth. So, and the market is very tuner.
And it shifts away from new parts to maintenance and repairs is what that's what the Evo is. I think probably 50% of the stuff I do now is just maintenance and repairs. So
right. So we are going to push the packages in that market a lot harder than we have before. But I'm certainly not relying on the fact that only people are going to want to come in here and just buy, build the 1,000 horsepower package that we offer in a GTR. That's just not going to happen because of where the industry is. But we're pushing hard right now into the 911.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep. So we have a full array of parts for the 911 that I'm just about to roll out in Texas, actually. Full turbo kit for the 991 platform.
You're releasing them at a shop or just releasing them here for what is the goal with that?
I'm bringing the car that we're kind of prototyping them, or we prototyped.
For Texas 2K?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So I'm bringing them to Texas for Texas 2K. Bringing the car and then bringing some parts just to show what we're doing with that. So yeah, a full array of parts, and then packages ranging from 600 horsepower up to 1,500 horsepower for those cars.
Sure.
And then we have purchased a couple of C8s, which I think is a market that is going to be saturated, but yet a market that
but everybody modifies them. That's a good one to be in, and there's a ton of them, right? So there can be a ton of shops, and still everybody will still install and sell parts. So it's not you don't need to worry about it.
But the C8 will be something we will very, very heavily focus on packages, and that's it. It'll be, this is what this package does at the quarter mile, this is what it does at the half mile, and this is how much it is, and this is how long it takes to install it, and we have the parts on the shelf. And that's something I'm going to focus on a lot. That is the car that I'm going to really start that transition of, no, you're not going to bring me a Borla exhaust system and somebody else's intake and I'm going to install it and tune it. That's not what we do to those cars. You're going to buy this package, and if you don't want to buy this package, you're not my customer and you can go someplace else. That's okay. Just because I want to scale that side of the business where there is stuff in stock. It is an in and out process. We do have it nailed to the ground. It is very quality, and we know it. And then the results are very trackable.
And it makes troubleshooting much easier too.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Yeah, it's a good point. So anyway, so that's the C8, and that's going to be something I'm working on. I've got a manufacturing partner that I'm working on that with very heavily, and it's going to be exciting for us. And then the 911 will be some a la carte, some package work, and then the GTR will continue to just be, what it is. As far as that's concerned, we're still pushing hard into that. I mean, we're putting my shop car together right now. I'm going to go out there and roll race it and try to take down a couple Lambos and drag race it as well. So we're excited about the future of the GTR market as well. It's just we're continuing to push our part line and get bigger and better parts made for the GTR. It's not going anywhere, and I'm not stopping that. It's just a matter of creating a revenue stream that is smarter and less hassled, and better for the client at the end of the day. Than some of the stuff that's going on right now in the GTR market.
Well, awesome.
Yeah, so exciting. I think we started this conversation and I said something about the possibility of not being able to talk for an hour.
We're already an hour and 40 minutes into this thing, so we're going good.
So yeah, but anyway, that's that. Are we done?
Yeah. So how do we get in touch with you? If somebody's listening to this and wants you to modify their car, or wants to talk to you or has questions about business or anything like that, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, and I will just say this before I answer that. I welcome that. If you're a business owner and you want to hash some things out, to bounce some things off. Sometimes it's so good to just hear, oh man, you have that same problem. Oh man, you go through that too, or went through it as well, or or even just if you're both having a problem, just trying to figure it out together. And I don't think that happens enough in this industry. So yes, if you're a business owner, I don't care if you're, well, heck, my arch enemy ish, Forge Performance. Like I said, I just talked to that gentleman last night, and I hope we talk more. So yeah, if you're a business owner and you want something or need something, or if there's any support I can give, I'm here 100%. And then of course, if you're a client, we'd love to help you as well. So it's Cicio Performance. It's pretty simple. CicioPerformance.com, Cicio Performance on Instagram, Cicio Performance on Facebook. Sales at CicioPerformance.com. Cicio. So yeah, all the top speed stuff still works as well. So if somebody's going to top speed, it'll forward to all, if by chance, everything still works there. So
you didn't completely throw away the brand. It still redirects you to the new one.
Right. Yeah. Well, it did throw away the brand. We kept all the pertinent stuff that made it so that we wouldn't lose the atomization that we have, or if that's what you call it, I guess. So yeah, the website still redirects. I still own own all of the rights to all of that stuff. The Instagram and Facebook though are 100% deleted, but we just deleted them so that nobody could ever get them again.
Okay.
Just so yeah, we didn't totally toss it in the garbage.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to share your story. This is a very fun conversation, and when we go to 2K, I usually go down there for Saturday too, so I'll hit you up and we're gonna chat some more. So.
Yeah, sounds great. It was a real pleasure, and honestly, I'm sad that I took this long to do this, because I believe this is really good for the industry, and I appreciate what you're doing as well. So thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, and it came at a perfect time, because it sounds like you're really redefining yourself and your business, and in the professional, I guess a step forward is what you need, and it takes time to talk about it, right?
Yeah, personal life and business as well. I push really hard in my personal life right now to better myself. I'm reading more than ever. I'm just trying to be better to people, better to humanity. It's been a real cool, fun transition in the last 6 months. So you're right, it probably does come at a great time. So, but thanks again.
Thanks for listening to Do It for a Living. You can find out more about this guest, this show, and even details about what we just talked about at our website. Check out the Facebook page at facebook.com/doitforaliving and tell us who you want to hear from. And most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Click subscribe. Do it now. Seriously. I'll wait while you grab your phone. Open up the podcast app. Tap the subscribe button. When you subscribe, you help us gain momentum and attract more